This is the Jeff Oravits Show.
All right, welcome everyone. Hey, thanks for listening. Jeff Oravits here. Happy to be here with you for another hour of the program, and I think we'll get a good lay of the land on tax issues. I know, don't tune out. I want you to hear about this because we got this tax conformity issue in Arizona that we need. Well, the legislature needs to resolve. Aimee Yentes is with us from the Arizona Free Enterprise Club. Aimee, how you doing today?
I'm great, thanks, Jeff.
Okay, so. Is this the governor's veto machine? Did the legislature send something up already? Was that part of that tax deal, the $1.2 billion thing? I know I had on Senate President Peterson on this. Is this part of that, or is this a separate deal as far as our tax system in the state?
This is an ongoing saga. Yeah, the Republicans they had their ducks in a row. So first week of session, they passed out their own tax conformity plan, and within a couple of days, Governor Hobbs had vetoed that. And now they're working on Tax Conformity Plan 2.0.
Okay.
So that was, as of last week, they'd been moving to mere versions in each body forward. And they're trying to give her an off-ramp. They're trying to do their best to help her out, but she won't help herself.
Yeah, she's okay. It was surprising because we're back at the State of the State address. One of the first things she said, I thought she was like channeling Barry Goldwater for a minute, and she's like, "We need to do tax cuts for the working families and blah blah blah." And then the Republicans sent her a tax cut, but apparently it wasn't the right tax cut, or it was too much because I think she wanted a couple $100 million, and they were at like $1.2 billion, something like that. So I don't know how you reconcile that. Do we get a $500 million tax cut, you think, for the state income tax?
So, there's a lot of play there, and you're right. She opened up her State of the State the first day of session, and she called for the legislature to quickly put a bill up on her desk and put her tax plan on her desk. But I thought that was really ironic because her tax plan had not even been introduced as a bill yet. So, which is very unusual. If you're around the legislature and you're a player down there, you follow how things work. If you're going to get your ducks in a row, you've got your sponsors, they've got your plan, they're ready to drop. And so the Republicans did exactly what she said from the standpoint of like, we'll send you up a plan. We're ready to go. Our tax plan is in a bill. It's you can execute it within the first 4 days of session, and her plan wasn't even introduced. So a little ironic. We all thought that was
and
funny.
She would need to introduce it because obviously the House and the Senate are Republican led, and she's a Democrat. So you think she'd have to lay the groundwork, lay the tracks beforehand, or else it's dead on arrival. So they sent her something that she clearly wouldn't sign. So here we go. I guess we should back up a little, Aimee, because does this have to do with the extension of the original Trump tax cuts that happened? And maybe it's tied in with the big, beautiful bill because that thing's so big. I'm still unpacking that thing like 6 months later. But they extended the tax cuts, which were good for small businesses and a lot of folks throughout the country. And Arizona has to somehow, is it tie into that? Tax conformity? What is tax conformity? That's my question for you.
That's a great place to start. Exactly right. And tax conformity is actually something that just happens every year down at the legislature to ensure that Arizona's tax code, aligns with any, federal tax law changes. And that's typically a pretty boring process. There's not big changes that happen every year. But with the one big, beautiful bill, as you mentioned, we saw a number of what you said, solidifying the tax cuts that were included in the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act from President Trump's first administration, and then it included all kind of his popular tax proposals that he campaigned on. So everything from the senior deductions, the child independent care credits, no tax on tips. That was a big one during the campaign cycle. And so after he did that, then it became apparent to, all states, especially ones that are, coupled with the federal adjusted gross income. That's where we start. If you're a filer here in Arizona, a lot of other states were moving to, make changes to their tax provisions so that people would have certainty come tax filing season in the new year. And, we wrote about it, in August, that passed I think July 4th, we were writing about it in August saying, we're going to have to ensure that Arizonans see the full benefit of the tax cuts on the Trump tax cuts. And so we're going to have to make conforming changes. And so, Hobbs did something very interesting. And in November, she issued an executive order and basically telling her Department of Revenue to promulgate tax forms that were reflective of what she called her middle class tax cuts, which included a lot of those popular provisions from the Trump tax cuts. But to your point, it didn't include a lot of those kind of small business, what we call below the line issues. And so what happened next was really interesting because that was unprecedented. Governors don't set tax law.
Yeah.
So she can't pass a tax plan without the legislature actually, sending a bill on her desk. And so,
which would be true for President Trump too. I mean, it had to go through Congress.
Yeah, that's exactly, what is the genesis for the response. Because of their changes, we need to make changes so that, Arizonans can have certainty, but then also so that we can take full benefit of those tax cuts.
Okay, so let me ask you this, Aimee. What, for those listening, how does it help the average person out there? I mean, what are you proposing? What should be done here in Arizona to, well, in my opinion, keep more money in people's pockets because they always know how to spend it better than the wonderful people in government.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. And we start with that premise too. Our position from day one after the One Big Beautiful Bill passed was that Arizona needed to conform in a way that would take full benefit. So you mentioned those numbers at the beginning of of our conversation. For this first year, that's about $440 million that we need to make sure Arizonans could take full advantage on by coupling those provisions in the Arizona tax code. Mm-hmm. And so that's step one. And the initial plan that the Republicans passed that first week of legislative session that Katie Hobbs vetoed, it did that. It checked the full conformity box, and then they made some tailors to it so that it would be Arizona specific, so that it was it included a lot of those same provisions, no tax on tips, things like that. But then it had a bit of an Arizona flavor to it. And there's good reasons to do that. We don't tax Social Security here in Arizona, so we made a run at some policies to try and, make it more suitable for, kind of broad-based senior class, with retirement savings, but also for young savers. So they did some things to massage the plan that was more Arizona specific, but keeping the fidelity to that full conformity box. And then that's what she vetoed. And to your point, she really only wants to see about half of those tax cuts. Her plan was about $200 million. Okay. And so Arizonans would not see the full benefit of the Trump tax cuts under her plan. But more importantly is just the utter chaos that tax filers are now facing because, we need to be able to have the assurance of a tax law that says that these tax forms are what the law is. And so it's definitely chaotic for a lot of tax filers right now.
Okay. In fairness, my wife, Angela, does all that back end prep work, and we have multiple companies we file for. It can be, it's a fun time, and she's been working diligently through the pile. And the problem is, like for your LLCs, for your corporate filings, things like that, I believe the deadline's in March, right? Middle of March.
Yeah.
So that's coming up pretty quick. And here it is, middle of February, and we have uncertainty, and business does not like uncertainty. So this needs to be taken care of like yesterday.
And, the hearing that the Republicans had that first week on their tax plan, Department of Revenue came and testified, and their testimony was kind of shocking. They said if we don't get certainty, to your point, we're under a real constricted time frame. Mm-hmm. We're going to probably have to hire, 200 new employees to go through this backlog. And, how many people are going to have to refile amendments? Hundreds of thousands. And
spend money. I mean, I got to pay your accountants and stuff. I always love when they come in and say we need more employees, though. That's usually the first thing. We need more people. Aimee, can you hang on a second? I want to put on your thinking hat on this because, and I know I was kind of surprised you with this because I saw Mark Zuckerberg. He bought a house over in Florida, right? He's bailing out of California. So what is the right tax mix? And should we even have an income tax in Arizona? I want to touch on that a little bit. And then I'd like to get your thoughts on Arizona Free Enterprise Club, kind of what else you're focused on this session. So we'll touch on all that in just a second, if you can hang on. If you got a comment, I'd love to hear from you. Talk with Jeff at iCloud.com. Send those in right now, and I'll have Olivia check all those out. We'll get to those in just a second. Hang tight. We're back in just about 60 seconds. Some homes sit empty now while others get multiple offers. Kelly Broaddus turns the slow season myth on its head with strategic timing that catches motivated buyers when competition is lowest. This is Jeff Oravits, and Kelly understands that winter buyers are serious. They're ready to close, which leads to better offers for you. And Kelly knows the secrets to winter staging and exactly how to showcase your home's best features and make buyers fall in love regardless of the season. Even if you plan to wait until spring to sell your home, it's important to call Kelly now. She understands the unique market in Flagstaff and can help you prepare for the sale. Starting the process now is essential for a smooth transition. If you're looking to buy or sell a home, call my friend Kelly Broaddus with Broaddus Properties Group, brokered by eXp. Call her at 888-446-5602. That's 888-446-5602. Or go online. There's a ton of info there, including getting an instant valuation of your home at northernarizonafinehomes.com. All right, welcome back. We're talking with Aimee Yentes. She's the vice president with Arizona Free Enterprise Club, azfree.org. Aimee, I was telling you Zuckerberg, and I was talking about this last hour, Facebook guy, he's moving it like a lot of people to Florida. We saw Sylvester Stallone move there, all these people. I think he's buying like a $200 million house because, you got to be comfortable. And this has happened, this is happening a lot where people are fleeing California. These blue states are bleeding capital. There's a brain drain going on. Although some of the people that move, I don't know about the brains, but anyway, why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we following the Florida model and go to we get taxed on everything, property taxes, sales tax, income tax, fee on this and that. Why don't we just dump the income tax here in the state and attract more capital and more people fleeing these states? Maybe not Mark Zuckerberg, but other people.
Wow, Jeff, you're preaching to the choir. I'm already a believer, brother. 100%.
Okay, we've been yelling the same thing for a long time. Yeah. Oh, I mean, go ahead, take it from there.
No, and without a doubt, we've definitely seen the benefits of Arizona just flattening the income tax and going to one standard rate, and slashing that to 2.5%. Interesting enough, at the time that was being negotiated and debated Legislature, you kind of got two schools of economic thought. And, one is that, we can't possibly do that. If you're listening to the conversations that our cities and towns were, testifying to at the time of that negotiation, they're like, well, we're all going to be poor. The state's going to be poor. The cities and counties are going to be poor. And we're going to be generating a lot less, income revenues that then, of course, feed the budgets of state and local governments. And so that was their position. And not that that's of any particular interest, other than I think what really is interesting that happened is afterward, which is the fact that we went to that flat rate of 2.5%. And instead of anemic revenues being generated at the state level from income taxes, the very opposite happens.
Yeah.
So arguably, we're taxing people a lot less, and the state is generating a lot more in revenue. So what does that tell you? Well, it says the Jeff School of Economic Thought is sound. Yeah, that actually you stop taxing productive work, and all of a sudden people, start investing capital and taking risks and building businesses, and it's an amazing thing. But yeah, we're absolutely of the same school of thought. We'd love to.
Yeah, no, that's the way we should go.
Down to zero.
Yeah, they cry wolf all the time. The proof is in the pudding. If that was the case, Florida would be destitute and broke, and the roads wouldn't be getting paved, and nobody'd be moving there because they don't have schools, and they can't afford to pay their fire department and police and blah blah blah. I mean, it's just not true. It's patently false. And they always say this though, Aimee, because they love every tax revenue and every source of funds they can get. But you're right. If you make it where capital can flow freely here and people can come invest, they're going to bring their money. And, here's the things that they'll cry about, like people like Governor Hobbs is, then the rich won't get taxed their fair share. Well, then they'll just move to Florida. And then they'll invest their money there. I mean, that's what they're doing. And other states as well that due to no income tax. Wyoming's growing, believe it or not, quite a bit. I think they do that as well. So is there any, and maybe I need to start asking when we get the members of the legislature in here. This should be the new question. Is there any push to do this here in Arizona, to just ditch it, get rid of it?
I think there's been different steps taken over the years, but it's not like I do this, and you have to look for good opportunities in which you can do that, because obviously, you do have to anticipate, if you're going to eliminate that revenue source, how all the core functions are still going to be there. So it has to be done methodically, but then there have been bills introduced at the legislature that, one model is to basically set up revenue triggers so that as the state enjoys surpluses, and you do it in such a way that, you're still covering all your obligations. You create a safe buffer, but that actually buys down the income tax over time. And so there's ways to do that, kind of create a glide path. You do have to have the right, obviously, political dynamics. That's not exactly easy to do with who we have as governor right now. There's no appetite from her office to do that, but there has been. But there has been. No, there traditionally has been.
Something that I've also brought up to the members of our legislature, and maybe you've been hitting this as well, is, and you just did, you mentioned the triggers on the revenue side. We should almost have an automatic rebate system or something if we're going to continue this income tax. I've followed this a long time. I chart this every year when budget time comes out, Aimee. The Arizona budget, the state general fund has grown from $9 billion to, call it $18 billion in about a 10-year period. But I've also watched local city councils, local county boards. Their budgets have generally doubled over that time period as well. I know we've had inflation, stuff costs more and all that, and the state has grown, but not to those numbers. It doesn't track right. And year after year, and Ducey started this, Governor Ducey, where, we need a surplus, we need a rainy day fund. And I was like, okay, it's good, $1 billion. Okay, good. And then there was another billion and another billion. And then all of a sudden they found ways to keep spending this money. And now the budget's double. Why don't we just have, until we get rid of the income tax, an automatic rebate system? Hey, we have $1 billion surplus, so we're sending $500 million back to the taxpayers, the people who actually put the money in.
Yeah, you're not going to find us taking umbrage with giving money back to the taxpayers.
Sure.
Now, rebates, if that's the best we can do, that's something that 2 years ago the Republicans did when they passed their budget, and then Katie Hobbs, who opposed it initially, then tried to get credit for it, and then they had to sue her, which is pretty funny. But that was kind of the best we could do under those dynamics. Of course, the gold standard for us is just continuing to chop away at those rates. Until they're zero, to your point, till we're doing the good things that Florida, Wyoming, and other no income tax states have done. We definitely think that's the best route to go.
Yeah. Okay. So what do you think? What are some of the key items besides this issue you're watching and I always get confused how many bills are proposed in the legislature. I don't know, 2,000 or something, many. But what are you guys looking at besides these taxing issues that we need to try to get done?
Yeah, our organization is really focused on affordability. That's definitely top of mind. And from the standpoint of like real kitchen table issues, what are the things showing up on a monthly basis to people that are, constraining their family budgets? And so, we kind of hit one as far as the tax conformity, making sure they get tax cuts there. But you brought up another really good point, which is we've seen year over year budget growth from city budgets. And so it isn't just the state that's doubled their budget within a 10-year period. We're seeing cities like Phoenix do the same thing. And that's translated, not just in windfalls from, the urban revenue sharing from the state perspective, but then also increases at the local tax level too. And then that's getting coupled with, rate hikes. If it's a municipal provided utility like trash, water, sewer, all of those things are going up and have been over the last few years. And so we think it's time to have some taxpayer protections at the local side. So we're advocating for a couple different policies that would do that. One is just a straight moratorium for the next 4 years on increases to tax rates, fees, which would include, business and individual fees for a myriad of activities that local cities engage in. And then rate increases, because those utility bills are just sky high right now. And so that's being heard tomorrow in committee.
Okay.
I maybe every lobbyist under the sun is signed and opposed.
You get what I find amazing is the government agencies all have lobbyists. All these different groups
and
going
the
there.
City government.
And the
correct.
city government, they have the lobbyists at the Capitol, they have lobbyists back in DC. And so these members of the legislature, they get bombarded more so from that source, that angle, than even their constituents that actually vote them in.
Yes, they go down there and say we need more local control, but that really translates into
we need more of your money.
We need more your money. Yeah, they're never down there arguing for local freedom. There's always local control. So,
well, hey, you remember this one last year when the legislature passed, or maybe it's the year before, the ban on the rental tax, right? Am I forgetting? Am I misremembering this? I don't think so. And it was the end of the world. I mean, we weren't going to have any more cops. Houses were going to be spontaneously combusting. I mean, they bring out the violins and the drama every freaking time, and there's been no change. And all it did in the end was help people who are struggling to pay their monthly rent and their monthly bills.
Same tune every single year.
Every time.
100%.
And, the food tax. The food tax is the other one. There's a lot of cities that have a food tax.
Yeah, and they're obviously very possessive over their ability to tax anything that moves. So those are a couple things we're advocating for. We're also looking for ways in which we can lower energy costs. That's another line item in the monthly budget people are feeling the hurt in. So we've got some good, I think some good policies that will kind of make some reforms in that area, trying to drive down the costs that are largely being bolstered because of, clean energy commitments, net zero commitments from our utilities. So trying to tackle that. And then, I think there's a lot of appetite down there for, welfare reform and just the fraud and abuse we've seen in that. And that really does kind of go hand in hand with efforts to, eliminate the income tax or any other kind of tax burden. Because if we've got just tons of waste and fraud in the programs that we do have, those are monies that could be absolutely better allocated to taxpayers.
Yeah, I agree. This is good stuff. And I know we've tried to reform SNAP. And I know that was a big subject during the government shutdown. The sugary drinks and things like that. There's been an attempt on that, the candy, and trying to get rid of people who, are abusing those types of systems so that you can truly help the people that, it was intended for. I mean, that's what usually happens with a lot of these programs, Aimee, is they start off with good intentions and they grow and balloon, and then fraud and abuse comes in.
Yeah, and there's, sometimes there's perverse incentives built in, and if you don't have a good administrator on the ninth floor as governor who's cares about this and makes sure that their agencies are checking I's and crossing T's and checking I's, they're not really invested in making sure that these programs are doing what they should be doing. And so then you get a lot of abuse like we saw in Minnesota, and providers who are out and out committing fraud. And so I know that a lot of energy in the Republican caucus is centered around taking a closer examination of those programs and making sure that, the neediest are being provided for, but all of the just self-serving of the network that kind of gets built out around these things, that all needs to get doged. So I know that there's definitely appetite to do that this year as well.
Yeah, I hope so. And then maybe a different governor will get some different results and really crank this stuff through. All right, Aimee, I appreciate the update, azfree.org. Maybe you guys can drop us a line, let us know how that hearing goes, and keep us apprised as to the movement of some of these bills, because this all sounds pretty much in line with my wavelength as well. So, and probably a lot of listeners. So I do appreciate it. We'll talk again soon.
We'd love to. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for the time.
This is the Jeff Oravits Show.